When the league tees it up in September, Roger Goodell will have spent 15 years, or will be starting his 15th year as head of the National Football League. He's considered the most powerful man in sports. I don't know if he's comfortable with that. Let me ask him, Roger, are you comfortable with that label?
No, not at all. I'm not sure who makes that determination. I'm not sure I buy it. But listen, obviously being involved with the National Football League and being commissioner for 15 years has been a great honor and a great privilege. And
yeah,
listen, I understand the responsibility that comes with it. It's important to so many people, including our fans and clubs. But to me, I don't really go much by labels.
You mentioned the fans, and let's face it, that's what drives the Shield. That's what drives obviously the players, the partners, and the sponsors. Tremendously important, the owners and the teams, but the fans really drive this, the Shield, and drives the brand. And I have, for one, I have missed full stadiums. There's nothing as a player, and I played for 25 years, and there's nothing that feeds a player's enthusiasm and adrenaline more than a full stadium, whether they're rooting for you or against you. And I know you can relate to both. How exciting is it that we're back? 70% of fully vaccinated, it looks like, across the board in the NFL now, and full stadiums.
Yeah, we're really excited about this season. Reflecting back on 20, the thing that we missed the most were our fans. We had 1.2 million fans throughout the season. But, going to a game where we weren't able to have fans in the stadium and going to a game where we did have fans in the stadium, it was night and day. It's just it's a completely different experience for the players, for the other fans, for our TV audience, for everybody. And it's something that I think is going to actually, based on what we've heard from our fans, what we're seeing in ticket sales, where we're exceeding where we were in 2019 as far as ticket sales are concerned. People want to come back and be part of that experience. They want to participate. They want to be together. They want to have that shared experience that I think just makes it so great being in a stadium. And so it's going to be fun. We can't wait.
I think the pandemic kind of leveled the playing field, because if you were a road dog, let's say you had to go on the road and you're the Raiders and you have to go play New York, and no fans, it pretty much, made it a non-event as far as home field advantage. And also, I think the pandemic really put the young players behind the eight ball, and the teams behind the eight ball in developing that young talent, because they couldn't get their hands on them. They couldn't get to them in OTAs. They couldn't get to them in camps right after the draft. And do you think that's an accurate assessment, Roger?
I do think that's true, Morten. And I talk to coaches about it all the time. I mean, the lack of preseason games last year is an example. That's, as you know, where a lot of young guys get playing experience and get an opportunity to really develop and then also prove they can play at this level. That was difficult for them to have those opportunities that were so limited to make it in the NFL. Obviously, this offseason, we've had some modifications to our offseason that were done for safety reasons, which is absolutely the right thing to do. Yeah. But I think it's a much more normal pace. Coaches feel really good about the opportunity to be able to, to be working directly with the players. And I think we're going to see, obviously we have a modified preseason and a regular season this year, but I think it's going to be a great opportunity for those players to get on a roster and make a difference in the league.
You mentioned that, the 2020 was a time for reflection because of the pandemic, and it certainly was for me too. How did I handle it? What was the stress levels like? What could I have done better in managing that with my family, my friends, and not being able to get on an airplane and not being able to go out? I would think for you, as you look back on 2020 and the decisions that were made, and it wasn't business as usual, but are there things during your time of reflection, meditation, whatever it might be, were there times where, were there some items that came up where you said, maybe I should have handled that differently? Maybe we could have done that a little differently, or, because it's always nice to have time. And usually, at least in my life when I played, there wasn't a lot of time. There wasn't a lot of free time to think and reflect. And here we had a year where we actually had time to do that. Personally and professionally for you, were there things where you said, maybe I could have done that better, or maybe, we'll do it differently moving forward?
I think the reality is you can always do that when you look in hindsight that if I had known X, Y, or Z, would we have done things differently? I think the challenge for us last year, honestly, was dealing with that uncertainty.
Yeah.
None of us knew. There isn't a single person that I know of outside of the NFL that believed we could play a full season, every game. And most importantly, Morten, is it's not just that we played, but the players and the clubs, they played at an extremely high level. It was one of those remarkable seasons. Great individual performance, team performances. The game was, extraordinarily healthy, exciting, and competitive. And to me, when you look back at that, that's a tribute to everyone coming together.
Yeah.
It was the players. It was the Players Association. It was medical experts beyond the NFL that came together to help us develop protocols that could keep our players safe. It was our clubs working and implementing these protocols, which were really difficult and strict.
Yeah.
And then everyone had to follow them. And, there were challenges along the way, which, are just part of what we had to do. But it was our intent to make sure that we did our part to show that we needed to move on and operate through the pandemic and do it safely, of course. That was the core of everything we did.
Yeah.
I've never been prouder of being associated with the NFL to see the various groups come together. And really, it could not have happened without that. And if you have that, and you have the social justice issues that we're all managing as a society, as a world, that, obviously was another big factor for us, and a lot of time and energy and thought. And, as you know, we also spent an awful lot of time during the year adjusting and adapting, but also negotiating our long-term media agreements. And we had to do basically a mini CBA, which is our agreement with the Players Association, as you know. So it was a hectic year, a challenging year, but one that I think really helped the NFL stand out above all else, in the sense of, wow, they got this done, and they got it done in full, and they did it with, I believe, a lot of class and a lot of ability to say, listen, we can operate in this environment.
There's no doubt that the league is in great shape right now, and in no small part to Roselle Tagliabue and now you. I'm proud to say I'm one of the few players that played for all three commissioners. I don't know if that's an indictment on.
I'm not sure you will be the only one, Mort.
I'm not the only one. No. There's several guys that have done it. I looked it up. I don't know. It's a handful or so, but it sure is special to say, and I'm not counting Bert Bell. He was commissioner for a year or so back in the day, I believe, historically. But it is interesting to see how the league has expanded. In 1982, my rookie year was the year you joined the league as an intern, and your story is fascinating to me. It's powerful, and it tells a story of a guy, of a man, of a boy, a young man at the time from Bronxville High School, who was a free sport athlete. And if he hadn't had some injuries, would he perhaps have had a chance to at least go to college and maybe have a cup of coffee on a Sunday afternoon with an NFL team?
I don't know. I don't have many regrets in life, Mort, but one of mine was not playing college football. I injured my knee just before heading, into my senior year in my college experience. And I talked to Pitt, and I talked to Jackie Sherrill, who was the coach of Pitt that year. It was his first year. And I would have loved to have played college football. So if there's one thing I probably have in my life that's a regret, it's probably that. But I can't complain. I mean, listen, I had a passion for being part of the NFL, whether it was as a player, a coach, or a commissioner, and those dreams are big, and they're it's really somewhat remarkable that I went from an intern to commissioner. And so, a lot of people helped me along the way. A lot of people gave me opportunities. After I started here as an intern, I went to the Jets for a year.
Yeah.
And I was an intern. And at that, after that year, the defensive coordinator is a guy named Joe Gardy, who was a great defensive coordinator in the league and went on, coached Hofstra University and several other places, asked me if I'd go into coaching and stay on as a defensive assistant. And I really felt an obligation to come back to the NFL because they allowed me to do this and gave me an opportunity to come back. And it's probably the right decision, but I love the game of football. I love to be a part of any way I can. But for some reason, Pete Rozelle, who was my hero at that time, I just wanted to work for him. I just wanted to be part of that. And I guess it was a calling. I guess it was fortunate. I guess it was fate. I don't know. But I'm a really lucky guy to have been able to do something I love so much for nearly 40 years now, which is hard for me to say, but I'm coming up on 40 years in the league. And to have the experiences and have the opportunities and have the people around me who gave me those opportunities and helped me and mentored me and still do to this day, it's been a real honor.
Can you share with me and our listeners one or two things you absolutely took away from your relationship with Pete Rozelle and also with Paul Tagliabue? Two different men, two different leadership styles, two different eras, if you will, in the league's history and development. But can you share with us some tidbits there?
Yeah, Morten, you made an important point of two different eras. And the league was in two different positions when each of those gentlemen took over. I often say, and I'm really fortunate by the people who came before me. I think this league is. But they were two extraordinary commissioners who had different challenges. I mean, Pete had to really put in the foundation of how to make the NFL more attractive as a league and engage more fans. Mm-hmm. He was a genius at marketing and communications and really understanding that we needed to really ride the wave of broadcast television, which he really aligned those interests. He was obviously oversaw the merger of the NFL and the AFL, but he really created that foundation of sharing revenue that I think is unique in the NFL, where the Giants have as much national revenue as the Green Bay Packers or the Jacksonville Jaguars, because that now gives us the ability to put on a product that I think we're the most competitive league out there because of that. Everyone has a chance to win. You obviously have to make decisions about coaching and players and how you manage the cap nowadays. But every team has an opportunity, and you see teams go from last to first and first to last at an extraordinary pace in the NFL. And that's because of that foundation. And then Paul came in and I think really helped it through many legal challenges that were going on at that point in time, including with the players and working through really, we operated for several years as Paul came in without a collective bargaining agreement, and he was able to help structure that. And we expanded the league during that period of time. I think, continued to evolve on our media agreements. And I just think they both were extraordinary commissioners, and having the opportunity to work for them and benefit from that. They had different styles, different approaches. And you each have to have your own approach. So I think my approach probably is influenced by them, but I think we all have our different approaches.
I would find it very interesting to get your take on a couple of points that I want to bring up. One with Pete Rozelle. And when I think about Pete Rozelle, now I was in my very beginning of my career when he was commissioner, but I remember that I don't want to say it overshadowed what he did, but it certainly was in the forefront. In the press was his long-running 10-year legal battle with the league and the Raiders and Al Davis. And Al Davis wanted to move the team from Oakland to L.A., back to Oakland, and so forth. As distasteful as that was for Pete, and it may have driven him to retire, I'm not sure, eventually, because I can't take it anymore, It also allowed, I guess, moving forward, it did open the door in defense of Al Davis, it did open the door for movement of teams and relocations. Is that accurate? And what is your take on that whole scenario? Went on for about 10 years.
Well, Morten, remember, Pete Rozelle served as commissioner for 29 years.
Yeah.
So, basically 1960 to 1989.
Yeah.
And so, that's an incredible tenure to be in a position like this, and the challenges that he had to do and take on decade after decade. And he was an extraordinary man and an extraordinary commissioner. I still believe he's the gold standard of commissioners, in my view. But listen, we had, as you know, as a league growing, there were franchises moving from the moment we were created in 1920. I mean, if you go back and look at our history, which I know you're,
well, I mean, okay.
we're moving them. We've been moving franchises, and that's part of the growth of the league. Yeah. But they're always painful. They're always difficult on a fan base. And I think there's a balance in there that maybe over the period of time we all found that made sure that we had a policy that respected that we need to keep our teams stable and in their current communities. If we can't resolve issues that allow those teams not to be successful, you've got to go through a long and difficult process to do that. And it should be, because, taking a team from a community who, as you know, they feel an ownership in that team. Yeah. And, we have to make sure that we're making decisions for the long term that consider all of the issues in a community, the fan base, the stadiums, and everything else. So I do think things, as normally happen in anything, out of disputes or out of difference of opinions, people work together and actually find better solutions ultimately.
So let's talk about expansion a little bit. And I don't know if that's even on the table right now, but you have a team in Jacksonville that, has been brought up several times. You have an owner, Mr. Khan, and Rich certainly got connections and relationships in Europe. Of course, I have a huge interest in globalizing the game, because I'm one of the few guys that were born in Denmark, born in Europe, and was able to come and play the game. So to me, and I know it's on the forefront of your mind as well, is the globalization of the game, making it more international in nature. And of course, we had NFL Europe, but will we have a team in London? Will we have a team in Mexico City? What's the timeline? Where do you see it? Big picture. Where are we going as a league with expansion? And will the next team be in Europe?
Morten, a lot of things in there. I would tell you that I believe the international growth of this league has one of the greatest opportunities as we look into the future here, because football, as you know, American football is not played in a lot of those continents, markets, and every time we have an opportunity to share our game with fans on a global basis, they love it. They love it. The same thing that all of us in the United States love about the game, they love. And what's been remarkable to me over the years is, having gone to the American Bowl in 1986 in London, watching the World League and seeing that, and playing in Tokyo, which I know you came over at least once.
Twice there.
Twice now, and playing in Germany, and the ability of us to share our game with it, and you see how fans have evolved and actually become great fans. When I go we play now 4 games a year in the UK. This year we'll only play 2, but we'll be back to 4 next year. You see the evolution of our fans. They are the difference being in a stadium in London, whether it's Wembley or Tottenham, is you wouldn't know the difference, because the fans are really sophisticated, understand the game, passionate about the game, and that's really rewarding for us. So I think a team could be successful in the UK, but I don't see how we're going to be expanding in the short term for that. And I don't, I think our teams here in the United States, we want them to continue to be successful in their current markets. So we're thinking about how we continue to make the game of football, and our football, NFL football, more popular on a global basis, and playing the games over there. Media interest now is a really great opportunity for us because we now go direct to consumer. We can also use our media partners, which you're one of them, and to be able to do that, we're sharing that experience, and you know what the reaction is from our fans. It's been extraordinary, and that's a great potential growth area for us.
I think it's very exciting to look ahead for the next even 3 to 5 years. A couple of points that I want to make, and I want to get your take on it. The way that our young generation, young people watch games now has changed dramatically from when everybody gathered on the couch with a box of popcorn and watched linear television. The young generation now is streaming everything. Everything's had on their phones. They have their iPads, and I think that is something that the league has done a really good job on with the Game Pass, for example, in Europe. All my Danish friends, they watch the NFL on Game Pass. And it's easily accessible. So that's one point. It has certainly changed the way we recruit the games and watch the games. And then the second thing that has really engaged the fan base to me, and I also want to get your take on this, is the legalization of online of betting and gambling, responsible gambling. And as you know, I have a vested interest in that. But it allows people now to get this instant gratification where they are engaged with the game on a whole different level, on a whole different dimension, immediately being able to, imagine 10 years ago, and you would say, okay, third down player, they're going to run a pass, and you click a button and you put you have a friendly wager, and there's parameters, and you have responsible gaming, and you can do that. I mean, what a fantastic way now to engage the fan base. So let me hear your takes on the way people watch and the way the league feels about that and where that's going, and then also on the online betting experience.
Well, Mort, let me say this to start off. To me, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be a fan of the NFL.
I agree. I agree.
There's so many ways to consume NFL football now, and you pointed out many of those in the context of your comments. Media is changing. They're in the 60s when we were talking about Pete Rozelle and how he used broadcast television. There were really 4 or 5 channels, essentially. Now there are hundreds of channels. Now there are several platforms beyond it. And we're seeing more streaming. We're seeing the younger generation consuming media differently than we did 15, 20 years ago, even with social media. So we as a league take the perspective of how do we make it easier for people to engage on those platforms, whatever they choose, to be able to watch football. And in whatever form they want to watch it. And we've had some of the greatest innovations in sports over the last 15 years. Red Zone is an example, which,
Great.
It's a great, it's a great opportunity for people to watch football in that format. But, still the core of what we do is watching a game and following a team from start to finish. And that's still the core of what people do, but there's still a large audience and a growing audience that want to watch it more in the highlight version or be able to move around. And as you know, young consumers in particular are sometimes watching games on 3 or 4 different platforms at once.
Oh yeah.
They may be watching on a television, but they've also got, their mobile device over here, and they've got a computer over here, and they've got it all going. And I think that also goes into what you were talking before, that the technology now is allowing people interactive experience. I think it's one of the things we're excited about with our new partnership on Thursday Night Football with Amazon Prime, which I think you're going to see a much different way of experiencing football.
How so?
Through that, I think there'll be much more interactivity. There'll be much more engagement of all the data and the stats that you'll be able to see, or you'll be able to access, or different broadcasters doing the game. And I just think there's going to be that. We always say that we want to give fans access, and that's what they want more of. They want to have as much access as possible to the players or their coaches or the game itself. What's going on behind all this? And I think we're going to be able to do that on the multiple platforms that Amazon's going to be able to bring to the table here. And then, as you point out, the gaming, you said the right word. It's another way for people to engage.
Yeah.
As you saw through your career, fantasy football became a crazy thing. And that's a form of this in some ways, which is another way for people to engage. They would watch a game to the end because they were watching their fantasy player, even if their team,
It's mind-boggling. It really is.
It is. But I think this is another extension of that, where people will have another reason to watch football and to engage in a way. It might bring a broader fan base, to your point, which says, you know what, I love that element of it. And now they learn a little bit more about football. We keep talking about how do we make more fans, right? How do we develop more fans? Technology, opportunities for engagement like gambling give us an ability to create even a larger audience than the current close to 200 million fans that we have.
Yeah, it's exciting times, and a lot of it is data driven, and we love in the NFL, we love stats, we love statistics, right? And there's a stat for everybody and everything and every play, and so there's got to be a way also moving forward where it doesn't get too confusing, where we have to say there's got to be some guidelines, perhaps, and I don't know if you've thought about this, where you can overload people with too much, but maybe within the parameters of the game to keep it as pure as possible, but also give the experience, like you just mentioned, make the experience as powerful as possible. Perhaps those parameters need to be talked about a little bit. And is that how you see it, or is it just going to be, you don't want a free for all? I mean,
no, Morten, you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think just to give you an example of that, if you watch our broadcasts on our traditional network partners that we've had that are all obviously adapting and changing their media properties and platforms, you have a linear broadcast that remains very clean if you watch it on the NFL.
Yeah.
They also have so many other platforms, whether they're other channels or whether they're other platforms that they're using on streaming, that you can now give them an alternative, to your point. And so if they're more interested in more stats, you might be able to go there. If they're more interested in gambling, you'll probably end up going over there. If you're a newer fan that wants to learn more about the game, you want to hear a broadcaster try to explain it. We did a great experiment last year, which you may have seen on Nickelodeon.
It's funny. Yeah, the end zone was the splash zone, whatever you call it,
right.
What is it called when you dump?
The green,
the sludge zone, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And it was
good. It's good fun.
What really struck me about that is not just the number of kids who started watching it, but the number of families who started watching it. It now allowed them all to sort of get around whatever device they were watching it on. In this case, probably mostly television. But they sat in a living room with mom and dad and the kids and grandma and grandpa, and everybody enjoyed the experience. And so we have to create those opportunities. It may have not been right for everybody. Maybe the hardcore football fan didn't really want to see football in that fashion, but it didn't. In this case, it didn't impact them because they were able to choose.
That's correct. They had option.
Correct.
Options. Yeah, I love that. And so let's talk a little bit about this year. I'm assuming the Slime Zone then will be back again, maybe for another go around on Nickelodeon, or maybe on Amazon Prime. We'll see something unique and crazy. We'll just wait. We'll just keep that a mystery for now. But I want to get your take on the season coming up, because it's exciting, and we're back. Hey, everybody's 0-0. That's what I loved about football. Everybody, and it's interesting. You talk to head coaches, and they say, "Well, it's every year is a new proving ground," and that is the wonderful thing about it. The fact that you have. And now we have 17 games, so I want to get your opinion on the 17th game. Will that make it tighter at the end, more competitive? More teams will be relevant for the playoffs? I would think so, Roger. Would you agree with that?
I do, and I think I would add into that. Remember last season we expanded the playoffs also, so
Correct.
we had
Yeah, of course.
teams. So I think more teams are in the hunt, and honestly, I think as a league, as you come down those final weeks of the season, we have 20 or so teams normally that are all fighting to get into the playoffs.
Yeah,
that's great for our fans, right? And it really creates the competition and the excitement and the drama that we're all looking for. And I think adding additional regular season game and taking away a preseason game is what I call flight to quality, because we all know that people don't want the preseason games the same way they want regular season games. And in fact, we've spent 10 or 12 years really studying the safety of one versus the other. And in fact, it turns out that a regular season game from an injury standpoint is actually safer than a preseason game. And so we think we can do this safely. We think we can continue to modify the way we practice, the way we train, the way we play the game. And that includes on the field. As you know, we've taken a lot of techniques out of the game that have caused injuries. So we think we can continue to do this in a safe way. But I also think that's now going to bring even more drama, more opportunities for more teams to make it into the postseason, and to just improve the quality of what we do and everything we do. We live by this mantra: how do we make us better? How do we do things better? And for the benefit of the fans and the game over the long term. And I think both those will be positive changes.
So it sounds like you're pretty happy with the rule changes. There's one rule change I would like to see the league.
You want to move the goalpost in, don't you?
Yeah, let's make it more narrow. I don't know if you knew this, but I kicked on 8-foot goalpost in practice my whole career, and that's why that 16 feet 8 inches looked pretty nice on Sunday afternoon for me. One of the things I thought was a really exciting play, and it was actually an effective play for a team that needed the play, is the onside kick. And I know the rule change has really made it almost a non-entity. We went from a 40% plus success rate, 35 to 40%, to a 6 to 8% success rate on the onside kick, because you're not allowed to overload anymore. You're not allowed to take a running start. Is there any way we'll ever see the onside kick again become a viable opportunity for a football team to get back in a football game? I think it was a great play, fun play. I created that big hop onside kick, call it the Andersen, but so I would love to see it back.
Mort, so you're making a point, as you know, and I think I remember hearing from you at the time. We also moved the extra point back because the success rate of an extra point was well over 96%.
I'm fine with that. I think that was a great move.
Yeah. And so moving it back put a little bit more of a risk and question into whether it wasn't automatic. There was risk there, and I think we got it down roughly in the 90% range. We want every play to not be automatic. We want to bring that drama into every play. And I think the same's true with the onside kick. I agree. We're looking at that. We've been looking at that over the last couple of years with our coaches. We have a special teams group that has spent an awful lot of time. And I think, we'll come up with some solutions. There have been a lot of what I think are fun ideas, but we were really cautious, as changing a rule until we have a pretty good sense of what the impact is going to be. And you change a rule for reason A, and there are a multitude of other impacts to that play that you have to consider. So it's the unintended consequences ultimately. And but I do see something happening in that area, because we don't want something to be a dead play. Maybe a bad term, but that's what we look at it when there's no excitement to it, and the outcome is pretty much. I think we're literally in your stats down to 4% success rate last season. It's a play that's I wouldn't call it a dead play, but it's the only option. But there's some things that we think are pretty exciting. I don't know if you've heard of the 4th and 15 that we call it, that was proposed by several teams, where you could choose if you didn't want to do an onside kick, you could take the ball 4th and 15 on your own 25. If you make the first down, you keep going. But there are unintended consequences to that if you have
you don't make it.
Interference. Well, if you don't make it, it's just the same thing as an onside kick. I mean, you at least have an opportunity to do it, and you have to earn it. But, a lot of coaches say, well, what happens if there was a long penalty? And, do we want that type of outcome? So we're working that through our committees, through our coaches. And, I think the one thing we do really well is we continually look at the game and modify rules. We probably make 5 or 6 rule changes every year that I think are all improvements either to the safety of the game or to the excitement of the game and the competitiveness of the game.
What do you think about awarding 4 points for a 60-yard field goal?
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching a replay of a game recently on that one, and that's come up. There have been people who have talked about that. The downside to that one, again, the unintended consequences, or maybe the intended, is that I think people want to see more offense. Maybe not as much kicking, but they want to see touchdowns. They want to see the ability for people to do that. And so I think you'd see, and our statistics showed this last year. I can't recall them off the top of my head, but last year we went for first down on fourth down more than any time in our history. And I think that's what created more offense, more scoring. And, I think it's a balance, right? Yeah, it's great to see the great kickers. We have a Hall of Fame around with us in you. That's great for the game, but also I think there's so many other elements to football that you
I'm a little tongue-in-cheek on the rule changes, and I'll give you one last.
Let me ask you, would you do the 4 points for 60 plus?
I would, and I think we're going to see a 70-yard field goal in the next couple of years. I really think we'll see one. The guys are capable of doing it, and it's going to be that. It'll be an exciting play. I remember kicking a 60-yarder back in '91, and that was a pretty exciting play.
I remember that.
Certainly got the fans off their butts. I'll tell you that. But
it did, and I agree with you. Listen, they're better and better. They're more accurate. They can kick it longer. Yeah. Probably like most sports, whether you're playing golf. I think we just got to keep finding that balance.
All right, I'm going to give you one last rule change. You can roll your eyes, you can shake your head. You go, Morten. Here you go again. Last 2 minutes of the half, last 2 minutes of the game, there's no offensive or defensive pass interference.
Yeah, well, listen, a quick reaction to that would be, what then? Somebody's just going to grab someone and tackle them.
Well, the best man wins. If you get off the line of scrimmage, if the guy's playing man and pressing.
Yeah, but if the guy gets mauled as he's coming off the line,
then he gets mauled. He gets mauled.
Yeah, well, okay. But the one thing that our coaches really, they really emphasize when we're going through the process of looking at rules,
safety.
Safety for sure. That's priority one. But the second one would be, let's not have different rules for different parts of the game. We're still playing the game of football.
Yeah. And
if you're now in the last 2 minutes, there's no pass interference. Well, you've been playing the first half of that, and then the second half with a different rule set. That's not. Coaches really object to that. So I would not think that's going to go too far. But I'll put your name on it and submit.
No. It's between you and me and our thousands of listeners. And right. I'm sure I'll hear about this one. So that's all good. Let me get your take on Tom Brady. He's going to be 45. What is he going to be now? 44 years old this season. I mean, remarkable. By the way, I have a football that the New England Patriots gave me. It's a little deflated, Raj. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that one. I couldn't help myself.
Tom Brady is, to me, he's remarkable. I think the great athletes in the world, and probably the great leaders and the great business executives and the people that really are the ones that can make everyone else around them rise up and play at a different level. And I as you know, football is an incredible team game. That's one of the things I love about it. Is it's the greatest team game in the world. And I think Tom Brady basically put the Buccaneers on his shoulder, got everybody else to play at a higher level. He has incredible competitiveness and focus. He got everybody else to see how to do that. And, to be able to do that is just remarkable at any age, much less at, his current age. And he takes such incredible care of himself. I hope he plays for several more years. Our fans want to see it. We want to see it. And he's, as they say, he's the GOAT.
And it's been unbelievable to watch him. And Tampa Bay went from oblivion to, I mean, they did win a Super Bowl back with Gruden, but I mean, basically got New England back to the Stone Age, and you got Tampa right there hoisting the Lombardi. It's unbelievable what one player can do.
Yeah, but I would only argue one point. There are a lot of great players on that Buccaneer team, and that's the point I'm trying. I think he helped elevate all those players and helped them believe that they could win the Super Bowl, and they played at a higher level as a team and as individuals. And I just I marvel, like the rest of us, at what an extraordinary athlete, leader, performer he is.
Yeah. A lot of offseason moves went down this year, Roger. You got J.J. Watt going to Arizona, Matt Stafford to L.A., Julio Jones to Tennessee. In your mind, which player, playing for a new team, are you most excited to watch? I mean, I know it's like having kids. You like them all, but who do you think is going to flourish in their new environment most?
As you know, those things are really hard to predict, and I like to stay in my zone. And
I know.
That's not what the commissioner's responsibility is. But I will say that I think the system we have, where there's limited free agency, there's all these draft choices that come into the league and change the team's fortunes. I just think we've found the right balance there. And it's hard in football because it is such a team game to put one person in and it all changes. And I don't think it is one person that changes it. I think it has a huge impact, as we talked about with Tom Brady. But I think you really got to make a lot of changes to change the fortunes of a team. And that's what makes our game great. And then you have to balance with the salary cap. But
yeah,
I'm excited about seeing some of these young quarterbacks coming in, some of these, great young players that I just think they're not only going to make our game better on the field, but they're having spent some time with them at draft more. They're awesome. They're just terrific young men that I just think they're going to make a big difference on and off the field in our communities.
I think one of the most important improvements to the game happened in 1987 when Paul Tagliabue was commissioner, and we did implement free agency. I came in 82 where there was no movement, and we had player stoppage there for benefits, and were able to work a deal out, and thank God for that. When I finally get my Burt Bell, it's not, it's going to be nice, because of the benefits negotiated on the player's behalf. But in 87, I mean, with Reggie White and God rest his soul, what a player, what a man. Free agency has really made the game more competitive, and balancing it, like you mentioned, with the salary cap has been a really good thing for the league, I think. And I know there was resistance, of course, at the time, but like any other things, and in hindsight, wouldn't you say that free agency has been one of the most, combined with the salary cap and responsible economics, has been one of the most important changes for the league?
Yeah, I would. I would agree with that. I mean, I think, again, limited free agency where it's just not, there's a wholesale changes. I think, again, it balanced the interests of the players who wanted the opportunity to move to a different team for a variety of reasons. Some could be economic, they just would rather be in some other market. But we found the ability to do that without, coming on and starting a season and sort of saying there's a whole new set of players here, right?
No, you don't want that, because there's a fan recognition too.
There is, and I just, I understand the football people during that period of time said it's a team game, this would destroy it. To the players' credit, they kept pushing this through Gene Upshaw and all the way through, as you know, 2 strikes in the 80s.
Yeah.
It was Pete Rozelle who actually put in the first free agency with Plan B. As a format. I think that was the 87 change. And
87 for 3 games, yeah.
And then the new CBA in the early 90s, where Paul was commissioner at that point in time, I think they had a new form of, obviously, the free agency and a salary cap, which I do think, was a game changer. No pun intended.
No, it has been, and I've kept you a long time. I just want to end, Commish, Raj. Well, I've always called you Roger. I don't
Yes,
ever
you have.
remember. I don't ever remember calling you Mr. Commissioner. I don't know.
I would prefer you not more. We've been around. Everybody talks to me about. Didn't you come in the same year to the NFL as an intern as Morten?
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, exactly. 1982, buddy. I mean, I did my research a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's hard to imagine it was that long ago, but
well, it's been unbelievable ride
for a reason.
I appreciate you saying that, and I've really, sometimes I do wear my feelings on my sleeve, but it's because I care and because I'm passionate about the league and the product, and always try to, represent that Shield at the highest level. That was really important to me, not only my team and my family, but the Shield. So I hope you,
Morten,
hope you know that.
Always do, and you might be able to see over my head here the Shield.
Right, I do.
My desk. So when I sit around at my desk here,
yeah.
I'm looking right at that Shield.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And it is meaningful to me, and you always did. Listen, I always respect when you brought up a point of view and you shared it with me. We did listen. We may not agree all the time, but that's okay. Yeah. I think that's what makes the game better, is that it's people like you, Hall of Famers, that not only contribute on the field, but you contribute off the field and make our game better ultimately. And the good news for us is that you're still doing it, and that's
absolutely.
Doing it.
That's going to be a job for life for me, and I look forward to some of these great opportunities down the road, globalizing the game, expanding the gaming platforms and the education of the game, of the experience for the fans. I think that's going to be a tremendous tool for the league as well, and. Let me get your take on a few guys. I'll give you a name, and you can do one word. You can do a sentence, whatever comes to mind. Paul Tagliabue.
Great commissioner, incredibly instrumental in the growth of the NFL, and so glad that he's a member of the Hall of Fame.
Amen to that. I was there when when he didn't get in one year and I got in and had a conversation with him. I said, it's just a matter of time. I heard, I'd heard that as well. So it's a great thing. It's completely deserved for sure. Pete Rozelle.
Another incredible commissioner, as I said earlier, gold standard. Yeah. The NFL would not be in this position without Pete Rozelle.
Adam Silver.
Great commissioner, good friend, somebody that has earned his stripes and has done an extraordinary job.
Rob Manfred.
Another great man. I've known him for many years, many decades, and listen, we're as commissioners, we all learn from one another. We all have the opportunity to communicate and to share ideas, and I'm fortunate to have both Adam and Rob in that category.
Gary Bettman.
Same with Gary. We call Gary the dean, and sometimes, depending on the circumstance, the old man of commissioners. But, I think Gary, I forgot the exact years, but he's probably 26 or 7 years as commissioner. And that's an extraordinary period of time to be leading a league. And he's done a great job with the NHL. So another that, we're just fortunate to have these kind of people in sports.
Yeah, I agree with that. I enjoy the NHL. Got some Danish friends that are playing in the league, and it's a fun product. It gets my winters going, that's for sure, when NFL season's done. Jerry Jones.
Jerry is is one of the most innovative, passionate people ever find about the NFL, and has had, as you know, is a fellow Hall of Famer. And deserves it. Also, he's helped make the game better on so many levels. He's helped make me better on so many different levels. I enjoy working with him. I'm glad he's one of our owners, because the NFL is better for it.
Yeah, Jerry came in 2017 when I was inducted as well. He was in the same class, and I remember a comment. Jerry and I were just sharing some time together, and he was talking about the early years with the Cowboys when he was in the process of buying the team, and he had a tremendous amount of debt. He had a tremendous amount of risk, obviously, involved in doing it. I'll never forget it. Morten, and he did one of these. I pushed all the chips to the middle of the table, and then I just did one of these. And let's see what happens. And you know how he does a little wink and a little nod.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Jerry Jones in a nutshell. I loved it. And it pretty much, to me, just told me everything I needed to know about Jerry Jones.
I agree with you. And as I say, he comes as he says, I strapped that debt on my back. and I willed my way to success. And as I said, he not only had incredible success in the 90s with the Cowboys, but he's actually made the league better on so many different levels. Whether it's on the competitive side as serving on the competition committee, he's been involved in all of our major committees, and he's done a great job. And I can't imagine the NFL would be in this position without him.
Yeah, he was very creative in the marketing and in licensing agreements and taking that to a whole nother level, I would say, and was a lot to be learned from Jerry Jones, that's for sure.
I agree.
Robert Kraft, and now can you hear the boos from Boston raining down over you as I mentioned Robert Kraft's name?
Yeah, well, that's what we love about this sport is that fans are passionate about their teams and they're going to be loyal as can be. So I totally get that one.
Yeah.
That's not my job all the time. My job is the 32 teams and the competitors of our league. But listen, Robert, since he bought the franchise, as a fan who sat in that old stadium up in New England for many years that you played in, I'm sure. And the reality is he's got a new stadium built. He's created a franchise that expects to win and has won at an incredible level in an era where it's really hard to continue to win. The challenges every year of keeping your team together and dealing with the salary cap, it's really quite remarkable. And then, also off the field, they've done an incredible job with that stadium in Foxborough, which a lot of people said could never be a great site. He's built around that an incredible development. And I think everything he's touched as owner of the Patriots has gotten better, including the National Football League and including me. And I think the record stands for itself.
Yeah, I can tell you that new stadium was a hell of a lot better than the old one. I remember playing in the old Foxborough, and the visitors' locker room was in the end zone under metal bleachers. You can imagine the noise raining down on the visiting team at halftime, before the game, after the game. Oh, brutal.
No, it's incredible when you think back about the facilities. And I talked to a lot of the former players, but they see these facilities that we have now. And we've got two new great facilities coming. Really, I look on board this year. We had them last year, but in Las Vegas and Los Angeles for three teams, Chargers, the Rams, and the Raiders. And, without the fans, it was a different facility. But I think fans are they go crazy over these facilities. And I know the players will. And we've just, whether it's the stadiums or whether it's their team facilities, there's no comparison to where we were even 20 years ago. It's just the facilities are better, the experience is better for the players, the coaches, and everybody.
We've come a long way from 1982 when I was spending time in double-wide trailers on Saints Drive. I crossed from Manos Po' Boys.
I remember when I came into the Super Bowl this year, and it's right, the Buccaneers. I don't.
The Bucs was another one. Yeah,
that was. They basically were in trailers for many years.
Oh, yeah.
And right next to the airport, and I pointed it out to my wife and kids as we went by, and I said, "That's where the Buccaneers facility was." And they said, "Really?"
Nobody believed you.
Nobody believed me.
Well, we applauded when the Saints double-wide trailers caught fire. I think a sauna misfired and malfunctioned. The whole thing burned to the ground. We were happy. It gave everybody the impetus to build a beautiful new place down the road, man. So yeah,
it's incredible what's been done in the league over the last several decades, and a lot of people deserve a lot of credit. And you're one of them. So. Oh
no, I just endured, man. Those years.
Yeah. More than that. No more than that. Our players are every bit a part of our success, if not the most important part of our success.
We had a blast. David Baker, talk to me about David.
David is an extraordinary human being. Personally, he's a great leader. He's just one of those people who can look at things with incredible optimism and meaning.
Yeah.
And he puts that behind everything he does. And I think he's been great in elevating the Hall of Famers, the Gold Jackets, as we call them, and as you know, but also the game of football in general. Like, you know, he's focused on what do we do for the game of football over the long term, and using the Gold Jackets in that effort in a way has been, you know, I said to him, the best days of the NFL ahead, and the impossible is possible, and he's really proven that.
Roger, I have nothing else for you. Well, I had a whole bunch more stuff, but there's no really. We'll do that. We'll do that in private.
Right.
We'll do that in private. We'll have a glass of wine at some point and reminisce as we always do, and spend quality time together. Really, I appreciate your friendship, number one. And while I have you face to face, I appreciate your leadership. You take a lot of criticism. It's not an easy job. But your job is to make the league profitable, to make it safe and make it entertaining, and to expand the way that the owners want it to happen. And so for everybody out there, there has to be a sense of levity and understanding, and also perspective when you talk about a commissioner who is not the end all be all, but who is a vehicle for change and for success on behalf of a really big corporation. May I say, dare I say, the most powerful man in sports, Roger Goodell. I appreciate your time, my friend.
Thanks, Morten, and I agree with you on our friendship. I appreciate over the years having that friendship, and it only strengthens. And proud of everything you've accomplished on and off the field, and
thank you.
So glad you're a Hall of Famer. So well deserved.
All right, buddy. I'll see you when I see you. Hopefully sooner rather than later. If you need me in London, let me know. Whatever I can do. I
hope I'll see you over there, if not over here. But
sounds good, Roger. Thank you so much.
See you, Mort.
See you, bud.